council agreed to a request that was made by Matt Killian of the Chamber of Commerce to schedule a time for with the council during a work session to discuss the 371 overpass project. At that same meeting, council also requested to invite MnDOT to be a participant in those discussions. So tonight we do have time set aside during our work session for council discussion with both parties regarding the project. Time will first be given to Matt Killian, Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce. He will be presenting council with the organization's observation of the process, and it's to share its position and preferences regarding the project and the preferred design that I would like council to consider regarding the proposed project. After Matt has concluded his presentation, MnDOT representatives are in attendance and they will be providing council with an update on the project since its last appearance before council, which I believe was in late May, early June. At the conclusion of those presentations, council will have the opportunity to have discussions and ask questions and seek clarifications regarding the project with the two parties. It should also be noted that in your RCA or the meeting packet, there attached is a memo that summarizes the communications between MnDOT and the city related to the preferred design and an updated analysis of the local impacts of the said preferred design based upon MnDOT's most recent communications to the city regarding that July 9th submittal that we gave them. I do want to note that tonight is not a public hearing, and it's not the time to take testimony regarding from the general public regarding their position on this. The public hearing is scheduled for Monday, November 3rd. That would be the appropriate time. Those that are not able to attend are more than welcome to provide written comment, either electronically or through the USPS. As I indicated, after the presentations, this is the opportunity for council to get more information regarding the project. It's important that council members identify any items that they determine to be important to have answered prior to voting on the request for municipal consent for the said project. If time does allow, the mayor, you can open the floor for any persons in attendance to approach the podium and offer alternative design changes that have not been presented or vetted if they believe that it's worth consideration. Individuals should be given or shall be given 1 minute to do such. And so trying to put some framework around the context of the meeting so we have a productive 90 minutes related to this project. So with that, if there's no questions of council, I'll invite Matt to the podium.
Is the space bar, I'm just getting the space bar to advance the slides.
I think it's the down button.
No. Okay. Well, thank you. Again, Matt Killian, President of the Grand Lakes Chamber. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to have this business work session. I know that this is not a legal requirement, and I appreciate the last time we were here, this was the thing that we wanted. We wanted another bite at the apple, another chance to discuss the project, to present some alternatives. You granted us that, you didn't have to, and so we appreciate it. I also want to recognize that we have a lot of business folks in the room tonight many of whom have informed what you're about to see on the slides. This is not just coming from the chamber, but from several meetings that we've had here in the fall, and I'll get to those in a minute. Tonight, we're here to summarize the business community's concerns and offer some alternatives and solutions. We have some ideas about guiding principles for a newer revised design, as well as ways to tweak the current design. But I need to tell you that the business community, as we've said throughout the process, and again, the chamber is the mouthpiece, but the business community is overwhelmingly opposed to the button hook design. And I apologize that we're here at this point and we're sort of making the city council serve as judge, jury, and executioner of the process. We've been at it for a while, and we certainly hope to avoid this, but essentially this is where we are, and so we'll make the best of it, and hopefully it'll be a breakthrough tonight. So the first thing that I would like to call out, you've seen a version of this slide before in the past, and I want to just be crystal clear about what our advocacy is and is not. We are not, nor have we ever pushed to kill the project. This is not a submarine initiative. We're not trying to backdoor, trying to shut the whole thing down. We've been at this for a long time, and I think we've been collaborative, constructive partners for a long time. We do not want to smear the reputations or assign motives or demonize the engineers at MnDOT. We respect their work. They're trying to balance safety, convenience, and business access. And those are hard things, and this is a complex project. So we want to respect what they've done. We think that what they've come up with can be improved, but I want to give them credit because every time we've asked them to be at a meeting or to engage with us, they have, including tonight. This is not a few loud voices. I said this before, and I want to double underscore this. I think it's really easy to say, well, it's only going to affect these 10 or 12 businesses and everybody else is on board with it. That is not the case. I know I copied you on some letters before, but you're going to see letters. 240 businesses have signed on saying, we need something better, we need something different. So this is not just a few loud voices. And then we've also been accused of, hey, you're coming at this late. This is last minute. This is get your pitchforks last minute. This is not what this is. We've been at this since 2023. So we've been trying to be proactive throughout the process. So just a recap of the timeline, I would imagine MnDOT's going to do the same. From their end, a lot of this will intersect. But this started in January 2023 with the city and county asking us for a conditional support letter. Our Government Affairs Committee and Board of Directors denied the first one because we did not understand what the design was. They came back. They recommended some language that talked about the intersection improvement. I'll show you that language in a minute. And we issued that support letter. I don't know it for a fact. Maybe the MnDOT folks do. But that letter may have pushed the project over the top to get the $58 million in funding. It was a valuable letter. And we want to hold our partners to the agreement that we're going to continue to be part of the process. So you see, we hosted business sessions. Again, credit to MnDOT. They showed up in December. They showed up in June. We had a lot of engagement around that. When I started to understand on June 3rd, June 3rd, 4th, when we had those meetings, that this is not going over well with the business community, we decided to do our own survey. And so you'll see a little results of that survey. I thought that was a missing data point in the presentation. And then we kept them informed the whole time with the survey results. So our advocacy has been professional, consistent, proactive throughout the whole thing. That's important to know. So, backing up here. So continuing engagement, this is something that you probably don't know about or you haven't seen. Obviously, you know that we are here in August. We presented the survey results to you. I remember Councilman Cross, you asked me at the end of that meeting, when I requested the business work session, you said, bring us some solutions. So we've attempted to do that. We had the work session sort of private at the chamber with MnDOT on August 27th. And then again on October 3rd. Folks in this room will remember, we put all the initial 5 concepts on the screen. We looked at the button hook. We brainstormed as much as we possibly could. And you're going to see some of the results of that meeting here in a minute. Someone asked me, when did this process broke down? In fact, it was the county engineer, Tim Gray, that met with me privately. He asked me, when is it this process broke down? It broke down on June 3rd and June 4th. So that was the last session. That was when the preferred design was presented. And then after that, there was really no feedback taken after that. They were sort of locked in on that wooden hook design. It met all of the scoring standards, everything that they looked at, but we couldn't get much beyond that early June timeframe. So that's 139 days ago. And I'll just throw this out there. If we could have just been working on improvements for that 4-month period, instead of engaging in this epic battle, this epic high-stakes battle, we would be much further along right now. And there's been a lot of individual meetings with businesses and the chamber. We just don't understand how to get some of these ideas through. So I just want to say it's 4 months that has gone by. So if anyone's saying, well, where was the chamber? We were here. The business community was here. We just needed another partner that's willing to take some of this feedback. So I mentioned the letter, the conditional support letter, and that's the line that was in there. That was recommended by County Engineer Tim Bray. With such support, there is a heightened expectation for engineers to work closely with area businesses to find solutions that maximize economic growth and minimize undesirable impacts. That was the handshake agreement. We did that until June, and then the process broke down. We've upheld our end of it. Our business community has engaged in that process, but we haven't had meaningful engagement in 4 months. So that's where we are. So we're asking MnDOT and the project team to honor the handshake, to listen, to collaborate, to adjust. The business community kept its promise. We're expecting the same. It was a handshake agreement. They're not obligated to negotiate with the business community, but we want them, the local folks, to keep their word, and let's figure out a solution that works. So, to remind you, here's the top line business survey feedback. We sent this out in June and July. I presented this to you in August. We had 70 Baxter businesses responding to this. 60% rated the proposed design as poor. 71% want changes. 58% want major changes. 71% want changes of some sort. I've referenced the Brainerd Dispatch, what I'm going to call an entertainment poll. 2,000 plus responses, basically saying the same exact thing. About 2/3 of the people support this. There's a lot of undecideds, but overwhelmingly we're seeing the business community saying, let's do something different here. So we asked, what does that mean? Why do you say that? 51%, we're going to experience revenue losses. Well, of course you're going to experience revenue losses during the 2 years of construction. Everyone will experience revenue losses. But how long will those losses persist? 33% said it would be long-term or permanent. That's an issue. 20% said, more concerning, I'm thinking about closing, relocating, or selling. So that caught my attention. We need to advocate. And then the other thing that we learned, because a lot of times I think people say that the commercial corridor, well, it's just locals. Everyone else is a destination. The locals will find the destination. Well, our businesses told us that 1 out of 3 of their customers are tourists or out of town, which makes this intuitive navigation really important to have. And the other thing I'll say, and I know this is not the time for the public hearing, but the other thing that I'd say is I get a little impatient and frustrated when people say, well, it shouldn't affect your business because you're a destination. You're a bank, people will find you. You're a service, whatever it is, people will find you. These business owners know their business is better than anyone. And I've never met a business owner that would say visibility and access are not important to me. And when you look at these slim profit margins, you start taking people away from these businesses, it's a survival issue. So that's what we're here to advocate for. So I would say, just to say, again, visibility, complexity of access are the top concerns. You saw the whole PowerPoint presentation earlier. So on our meetings, here are some more specific business concerns that you asked for. So here they are. This is the last couple of meetings that we had at the chamber. Design complexity, we've already talked about that. And I'll give you a couple examples of that. The design requires 3 or more new maneuvers to reach many existing businesses. Right now, it would be 1 or 2 turns. Now it's 3, 4, or 5 turns. So design complexity. Lost access points, closing, Design Road, Golf Course Drive, and Fairview Road. I'll talk to you about this just in a minute too when I bring up the map, but it forces up to 1 mile of backtracking. Visitor confusion, we talked about that. There is a high value place on the northbound tourist. I said that at the last meeting too. A high value place on that tourist. That's the one that's doing the spontaneous stopping and purchasing. Higher speeds, that's one thing that we noted. We brought that up in several meetings. And then concern about the pressure on Woida intersection. When you take two intersections out, the concern is, and I'm passing along, is it could cause backups and congestion at Woida Road. So just to give you two examples of this, so I want you to pretend again that you are a tourist in the summertime with kids in the back of the minivan, and you're going north, and the kids want to stop someplace to eat. If you wanted to eventually go to Poncho and Lefty's, you would have to, at the crest of the overpass over 210 coming north on 371, you would have to make an immediate decision to take a right turn to exit off. You would go through roundabout 1 by Coles, roundabout 2 by Mills. You'd go over the highway. You'd go to roundabout 3 by what was formerly Cub Foods, and then find your way into Poncho and Lefty's. That is a lot to ask a tourist to do. The other one I'll give you, and that's the same thing for Ascension, by the way. I'll give you another example, another restaurant example. Ramen, Ibn Ramen, if you're coming from the west going eastbound, and you want to go to that restaurant, you would have to go through roundabout 1, under 370 roundabout 2. You cannot take a left there, so you have to go down to Cypress and backtrack. Or you can navigate the 3 roundabouts to your north, take Excelsior, and then back over. That is a lot to ask. And sometimes I think we suspend a reality with this. People are not going to do this. And I've heard the case, people use their phones. Not everybody uses their phones. Sometimes it's visual spontaneity. And so that's what we're dealing with here. If you go up north now, past Excelsior, you want to backtrack, Design Road again is closed. Now I got to go to Clearwater. That's 1 mile up and then a 1 mile backtrack. So in many ways, this is an ingenious design. They've connected all the dots, but it's very, very inconvenient, and I don't blame businesses for being threatened by what's to come. So this is getting into solutions, which I know we're here. These are guiding principles. And I think our business community feels the same way. We resisted the temptation to be drawing yellow and red and green lines on a map. There's different elevations. I acknowledge the complexity. There's right away. There's a lot of different things. So we just thought, let's talk about just principles for a business-friendly design. Number 1, let's have a goal. It may not always be attainable, but 2 maneuvers turns or roundabouts, not 4 or 5. That would be one principle of a business-friendly design. Number 2, minimize backtracking. Let's don't go a mile and a mile back. A quarter mile of added travel from current access points. And then the other thing is reducing the speed. Are there traffic calming strategies to keep the average speeds closer to 45 and not 65? And I think there's a lot of the folks in urban planning would say, your community's stronger when you can slow people down. That's what we're talking about here. So these would be clear, measurable standards. I know they have, and I don't want to suggest they don't. They have their own standards, but these are from the Brainerd Lakes area and the Baxter business community, the ones that showed up at the chamber. So I need to say that our business community was reluctant for me to even point this out because they don't like this design. But my question was, if we had to have this design with minor improvements, what would those improvements be? So these were the ones that came out of the meeting. Restore the eastbound access on Fairview Road, these are left turns and Golf Course Road. Fairview Road goes by the Watland, Baymont Inn property. Golf Course Road is by the Ibn Rahman and the Mills car wash. So those left turn ins. Restore the northbound and southbound access to Design Road, both right and left, getting into Mills, the Mills GM. There's a cluster of businesses back there on the right side, on the east side going north. And then, of course, the Design Road backtracking, minimizing that. Enacting the lower speed limits. We've heard the law enforcement issue, but what other standards or what other ideas could we have to slow people down? And then assure approvals of, I'm going to call them supplemental guidance for logo signs. There's mixed feelings about this. Are they allowable? Is this a freeway zone? And then Baxter needs to relax the sign ordinance to get signs bigger and higher in that commercial district if this goes through. So that would be our suggestions for minimum improvements. So I have the coalition letter. We circulated the letter. You're seeing the Baxter letter. There's 104 signers on the Baxter businesses. They're all been vetted. These are Baxter addresses. We gave them the letter. We didn't encourage them, just sign your name and we'll show you the letter later. They saw that, they chose to add their name to it. And then I think it was appropriate to do the regional businesses as well, because this is a regional corridor that everyone depends on. So you're going to see a lot of names that you recognize on the regional letter that's in front of you. So we're not asking for perfection. We're asking for fairness, we're asking for access, and the recognition that this is a once-in-a-generation project that's going to have consequences one way or another on your business community. So the key questions that I hope we will answer tonight, or MnDOT will answer, is, are they willing and able to make changes at this point? If not, why are we here? So can we have some sort of breakthrough tonight? We'd love that. What is the process for delaying the project so the design can be revised or restarted? What does that look like? We've heard, hey, we're too far along. How can we slow this down? Because again, generational, does it make sense to go another 3, 6, 9, 12 months to get this right? I think it does. And then how will MnDOT react if you vote no? Does the money go away? I know that's what all of you are concerned about. Does the money go away? Or does no mean not right now? Or does no mean let's come up with something different? I don't know the answers to those things. I hope you'll ask the questions. So again, we're prioritizing the Baxter of today. That's the main message for me. We want to take care of the businesses that are here. We don't want to see collateral damage. And we don't want to bet it all on a concrete jungle. We just don't know what the future is going to hold. And so with that, that concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. Sorry for being a little emotionally charged here, but I wanted you to hear what I'm hearing from the business community. So with that, I can take any questions, or I can just turn over the podium to the MnDOT folks. Okay, thank you. All right.
Well, I appreciate you all having us here tonight. I think, Matt's correct. It's a very complex project. It's a very complex site. There's a lot going on here, and something that's been pretty consistent is we have to have some pretty deep conversations on this project to make sure that people understand it. And usually when we spend the time and we have personal conversations, we explain kind of the trade-offs that are built into this process. The more we dig in, I think the more we kind of come around to the same type of understanding, I guess. It's sort of And I think what I'm noticing, and even some of what's being presented just there today, there's still some misunderstanding on some of the engineering concepts that are built into the alternative itself. And, that's why we're here. We're gonna keep coming back, we're gonna keep talking with you all and making sure that you understand, and it's perfectly okay. There's been questions where, did you look at this thoroughly enough, or why can't this work? It's been appreciated, especially when somebody can define what it is they want to look at, because we can really try to visualize it better. That's been something that's been a struggle through the process. It's just very complex site, a lot going on there in 3 dimensions, a lot of things to balance, and we're talking about the same things. We're talking about the right things. We're talking about speeds. Where we talk about speeds and lowering speeds, the MnDOT engineers and the engineers that we work with, we're talking about speed differentials being more important. Where are there differences in speed? And that's some of what certain features do in calming speeds, particularly at conflict points that we're concerned with. So I think we're worrying about the same things. We're talking about the right things. And I think some of what we have here today is going to cover some of the points that Matt brought up, and then some of it's not. We're probably going to have to be back here and take a look closer at their slides and make sure we're giving appropriate responses. But I threw a picture on here. This is from this summer. This is what we have. And so I don't want people to forget where we're at today. Sometimes we kind of idealize, we look at a complicated picture, a complicated solution, and we say, gosh, it's really hard to maneuver. That's going to be a change for us. But when you look at this picture, I want you to consider what that looks like for people that are coming to our area, and whether or not they even really reached our area. Because in some cases, on this day in particular, it was routing people 10 minutes. This was the 10-minute slower route. It was quicker to go to Motley. It was quicker to go up Wise Road. So they may never even want to go through this mess. And can you maneuver between lanes here in a condition like that? That's what we have to talk about. Is the existing condition really that great? So I am going to talk about just briefly the dates that Matt also brought up. This did start back in 2022 with a cooperative-led feasibility study, City of Baxter, Crow County, eventually getting funded under the Corridors of Commerce project, and then started getting some raw survey input in 2023, in the fall of 2023. So what this allowed us to do is get booted up. 2024 was focused on data gathering, bringing on a design team, and really getting out and developing some design alternatives to get our heads around this project site. Like I said, it was a pretty complicated site. That involved a lot of steps that you all were involved in, and we appreciated it. We hit the ground running. We did open house 1 with very little preconceived ideas. Standard design, interchange designs. Let us know what you think could work. Sketches were fine. Let's get every idea on the table. We followed some of our own brainstorming activities, value engineering studies, and other things. Closed up the year here in December 2024. Chamber of Commerce sessions, listening sessions during that time, part of that process, and sorry, typo there, Baxter Council Update 1, that would have been in December. 2025, you can see the font gets a little bit smaller, but the key points being developing those alternatives, refining them, going through 2 levels of screening. We were here in May of 2025, and I think this is appropriate that we do have a gap here with the council. So from May of 2025, we don't want to just assume that everybody made all of our engagement events up till September and to now. We did a number of things like a lot of better visuals came out in our July open house. We had some more Chamber of Commerce listening sessions. Those were actually June of this year. Before we presented this for municipal approval, we did have one last listening session with the Chamber. And so tonight, just to give you an idea where I'm going here, I'm going to hit that recap real quick, where we've been since that last workshop. We're going to highlight some of the key feedback we've received in the interim here and our responses to that input, because I'm not sure we're clear on all those points. I'm seeing old drawings in the previous slide. So even what we're talking about, we're not all on the same page quite yet. I want to make sure we are. And then we're going to walk through a few of the alternative concepts that the council asked us to take a closer look at, which is perfectly okay. We're happy to do that. We've run those up. And we're also going to touch on some ongoing discussions like business signing. And overall, a point I want to make before we get too far into this is I want to emphasize that NDOT remains a resource for the council through the municipal consent process. Our goal here is to really ensure that you have the right information, that you have the information and clarity you need to make an informed decision. I can't pretend that every document that we produced, you guys have all followed along. We're here to answer those types of questions, and happy to do that. Now, this is just a quick recap here of, and I know it's a little bit messy to look at, but alternatives identification can be a messy process. We started with something like 49 different ideas. Those got boiled down into 19 unique interchange configurations. Some of them, I don't know how well everybody tracked through them. They are on the website. They can be looked at. Ultimately, those were screened down to the 6 most likely alternatives that should be evaluated. And these are the ones that you're probably more familiar with. They're based on criteria like safety, access, cost, property impacts, and constructability. We did some public survey and feedback parallel to the decision-making process. When we went through and evaluated these alternatives, we also asked everybody else to follow along and do that with us through some surveys and things, and certainly through our outreach events. The goal was to focus on the most viable options. These were the most viable that we further studied from those original 19. I'm just going to make a point here before we move on. Ultimately, why the button hook was identified as the preferred alternative. We believe the button hook design offers the best overall balance because it addresses the core things that we consistently hear about: safety, traffic flow, ability to cross 371, and access to businesses. Those are the things that we are routinely asked to balance, and we know it's important to this community and the project. So while working within the constraints of a pretty complex project site with the BNSF Railroad, 2 very busy arterials and another busy collector roadway 1,000 feet from it. But ultimately, this is the only option that provides direct access to Excelsior Road from Highway 371 while maintaining functionality at key local roads like Cypress and Elder Drive. So what do we hear that people like about this alternative, or what did we hear? It minimizes the need for local traffic to use 371. The design keeps local traffic off Highway 371 by allowing people to move between businesses using what's going to function like parallel frontage roads off of the off-ramps between 210 and Excelsior. So it's going to be a safer, more efficient. It's going to be easier to get around those local areas of Baxter without having to use the arterial system to do it. So that's what we hear that people like. It's unique to this alternative. So this is what we had available to us to kind of prepare for tonight. We were asked both from the Chamber of Commerce and city staff. These are the last recommendations that we had to react to, and then certainly the alternative that was brought up at the last council meeting, we had that as well. But what we've been asked to look at that we were aware of, suggestions to simplify the button hook design, request to revisit access at Golf Course and Fairview Road, concerns about wayfinding, certainly something we can continue to talk about, questions about traffic operations at Hoyard Road. So we just want to acknowledge that this is kind of what we have, and that we're planning to have Derek from WSB and our design team come up, and we're going to look at these a little bit closer as to how we looked at these, how we responded to them, and what we still have to look at as we move forward. So I'm going to do that right now.
Derek. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, Derek Smith, WSB, working with NDOT on these alternatives. So when we get ideas and concepts like this, that's where my team steps in and we evaluate these. So we've gotten some ideas that we've heard from people, heard from groups, we've had people brainstorming, what other ideas can you come up with as we look at this. So one of the ones that we did that I have up here is, this gets to Matt, your presentation, the initial guiding principle was, can we simplify access? And how many maneuvers that have to happen to get to certain quadrants in certain areas. So we looked at this, at potentially maybe eliminating the roundabout on the east side of the Buttonhook, and allowing, I'm going to actually zoom in here. And so if you were to exit, you were northbound on 371 and you were to directly exit here, you would then have a decision lane. You could go left up to Excelsior, you could go right down to 210. And so that would be your direct access. And then, like Matt, you were saying, if someone was going to the northwest quadrant, then they would maneuver through one less roundabout than they did. The challenges was we put this through our evaluation process. What will happen with this scenario, what the roundabout does for us on the Buttonhook in the middle, is it allows us to end the loop ramp, which is this northbound entrance ramp here. We end that at the roundabout and it stops right here. With this configuration, the loop would have to continue at that 25-mile-an-hour design speed down to this. So it does push the Excelsior roundabout to the east somewhat, maybe another 150 feet from where the one that we've got in the Buttonhook is closer up here, and it ties into the frontage road.
Can I ask a
Yep.
question? Is this the first time that you're?
Yeah, we've just prepared this as a response to what we've gotten. So, and and I'll on that, I'll step aside there. When there are ideas and we get them, we will go through the same process. I'll have my team draw it up. We'll run it through the traffic folks. How well is it going to operate in that scenario? And we'll provide an evaluation back. So this is similar to what you would see if you guys suggest an idea. We'll run it through this process and give you a formal response on how it shakes out. The other thing that is a major from our traffic, comments from our traffic folks, if you are on 210, coming from either direction, you want to go north on 371, and we've got it drawn in blue here, you would have to head up this frontage road. You have two options. You can use the western frontage road, or if you head up this, you make a U-turn through this roundabout and then go north on 371. So we'd be asking the trunk highway to trunk highway traffic to navigate through a local roundabout, which from our traffic folks' perspective is concerning. And this roundabout likely, potentially, would need to be multi-lane due to the volumes and that interaction with the local traffic. So that's a note from our traffic folks on this alternative. And this, we did it on one side, something we could consider on, look at, maybe it's better on the other side, and you have a different configuration on the east side. So, but this is what we looked at as a suggestion. And this does, I don't have a comparison graphic here, but this is straight through here. So this pushes out a little bit further into the Kohl's parking lot. In that scenario, to line up with that roundabout. Then I should note too that if you are at Excelsior, you would not be able to get down to 210 on the east side. There is no direct route through this. You either need to use the western frontage road or one of the other parallel routes to the east. All right, I'll keep going through this. So just talking about some revisions that have happened. So initially, we had that February 25 open house. We did show golf course in Fairview completely closed. That is consistent with our access spacing guidelines on this type of trunk highway and what we have. So we did have that. We did get a lot of feedback about that being very concerning for the businesses. So at the July 25th open house, we did bring in rights only at both of those locations. And then we did get some additional feedback about how important those right outs are as well. And based on the city communication to us and our response letter, we have added right-ins, full right-in, right-out at both of these locations in our current layout. We did evaluate left-ins. Lefts on all highways generate a lot of our accident concerns. And so we did not incorporate the left-ins at this point into this layout. We have a graphic here that comes from the National Highway Safety Association, 2 out of 3 crashes involved left turns. So this, adding lefts in these locations is concerning to our traffic engineers. And doesn't necessarily meet the goals of the project on improving safety.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Regarding the slide.
Yeah.
You said the distance was too not enough to have that 3-way or 3/4 access. Now, how short are we from having enough room in your requirements to
So
make that work?
so the access guidelines would say no additional intersections within a half mile. So that's why we initially started with no access at Fairview Golf Course. And we evaluated it, right-ins, right-outs, those intersections currently don't have, with the right-ins, right-outs, don't have crash history. So they felt that they were comfortable with adding those in. So they are adding in the right-ins, right-outs, currently don't meet that. And what we have Fairview and Golf Course are significantly closer than what we would typically allow in our access guidelines. It's not like we're within 100 feet or 200 feet. It's significant because it's a half mile is what this is.
So do we have significant accidents because of the left turns that are there now?
That's a good question. I would have to follow up on that. I don't recall having that discussion, but we can get you that information on existing. I don't know whether you remember the exact.
I don't recall that, but something that I want to talk about with the lefts, like, they are concerning because they're not only are they, like Derek said, that they're, maybe 2 out of 3 crashes are there, they're also the most dangerous types of crashes. So if you make a mistake in making that left, again, back to those kind of right angle crash concerns, that'd be something that we're accepting, which isn't really oriented with the safety goals of the project. So they're more concerning than the right ins and right outs. That makes sense.
No, I understand, that makes sense. I'll address the whole concept of that when I get a chance.
Yeah, what we've got going on, if you look back to some of our public meeting boards or things like that, you see the big red dot in the middle, but you also see, and we have that data available, it's actually go right on the public health open boards, probably can pull that data and look at that and see how many crashes have been in all these adjacent access points. But that's a little bit the challenge of this project is it's the interaction of a lot of access points. Those access spacing guidelines are there for a good reason. Now, they get frowned upon when we're in a group like this because they're limitations, right? But those limitations are based in a lot of data. And you're seeing it play out here on this project, and that all these closely spaced access points, as much access as we want, wherever we want it, on these high volume arterials, that's where we're getting this safety issue from. That's where we're getting all the crashes. That's a lot of what we're learning, a lot of the Q spillback is between the intersections and the ability for these intersections to process the kind of volume that they're seeing. So we can certainly get the data. Just want folks to know kind of what they're considering with these types, and you'll see that. That's what some of these traffic features do. Roundabouts, J-turns. What they're trying to remove is some of those most dangerous conflict points, right? And they're trying to present them in a safer way. That's all a roundabout does, is take those lefts and throughs out and slow you down into those remaining conflict points that you do have to have. And now they're all rights, you're going in the same speed at the same direction. That's the benefit of some of these safety measures. So we can come back and more on that.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. So some of the additional changes I'll touch on, we have, this is somewhat a major change from a pedestrian perspective, based on feedback from Midnight Internal folks in discussion. They have added a pedestrian facility over 371 and also a pedestrian tunnel under the western bucket of design. So the pedestrians in the area have east-west and north-south movement without interacting directly with the highway. So that doesn't add to the layout that has happened since previous engagement. We have added based on the city's feedback, we have added the left out of Franklin Bank back into the layout, and then we have adjusted the clearance at Excelsior to 14.5 feet, which is a state aid minimum. I'm trying highway minimums of 16.5. The local agencies get to choose what they want to use, and they chose 14.5, which helps land 371 quicker and kind of brings it down in context a little bit. Write-in access request, this was part of the city letter. We're not currently showing this write-in access. I'll quickly touch on our reasons why, and there's a lot going on. We have the sign, what we potentially might be the sign right here. And so when we have people coming south, they're being introduced signage for the interchange of the button. And if they also have an additional right turn at the same time, there tends to be confusion. People will get into that right turn lane for design and realize, no, I actually wanted to go to the button, and they merge back into the highway and have a large speed differential. So that's the concern back from our traffic folks, and that was elaborated on in the city response letter, which that's been provided, is out there for everybody to read. Another idea that we have gotten, that we have evaluated now, is taking 210 over 371 and leaving 371 at grade with the railroad, and then also the Excelsior at grade signal. So you can see this here. I know the yellow and reds, sometimes this makes sense to me because I look at this every day, all day, but the yellow and red sometimes is confusing. But 210 is over, but if you look in the upper left here, this is what it would look like if you're exiting 210 to go to 371. You can see 210 would go over. This is actually Main Street in Elk River, what they did here. So that's kind of the context of what that would look like. So some of the key points on this is not all that dissimilar from our single point when we actually had 371 going over. A lot of our access concerns get shifted over to 210. So in this scenario, when we have the high-speed ramps on 210, our access guideline policies wouldn't allow any access between Inglewood and Cypress. So we wouldn't have any openings at design, there wouldn't be any openings at Fairview, and we wouldn't have a relocated elder because of the proximity of these entrances and exit routes. So that's the same concern that was brought up on the single point when we were going over with 371. We did have our traffic folks evaluate this, and there's a lot going on here, but this is the single point with 210 over, 371 at grade, and these are evaluated in the 2050 design year. And so you can see both 371 and 210, and Excelsior, and then also all the way down to College of Glory are operating at level of service F. In this scenario, we still have these signals. So I asked the traffic folks, well, why is that? And if you look on the right here, that I've circled it, we've got some long queues coming from the signal at Excelsior. And that showed up in all of our traffic models whenever we've had a signal at Excelsior. So as long as that signal is there, we generate these long queues which spill back into 210 and 371, and kind of they perpetuate out. And so this would be the traffic analysis with the same scenario if Excelsior didn't have a signal. You can see the level of service for all those intersections, mostly C with 1D down to College of Glory. So it's the driving force of the level of service is the signal at Excelsior. I'm going through this fairly quick. I know we're running short on time here, but we've got a lot of questions about what about Hoya. And so I wanted to present the traffic data results of what we see between Hoya Road. If we do top is no build, 2050. We do nothing at 371 and 210 and Excelsior. Just leave it as is. We have a level of service C with a total intersection delay of 28 seconds. The bottom one is Hoya Road with the button hook alternative in 2050. We also have a level of service C and 34 seconds of total intersection delay. So from a traffic modeling perspective, there's really no impact on Hoya Road directly from the interchange design. So I'll turn that back to Eric.
Well, I appreciate y'all sticking with us here. I know this story is kind of have to dig in on this project. I appreciate it. So there has been a little bit of confusion. The slide is just put in here. There's been questions about the funding, clarification of the funding. Can the funding be used in other places, things like that. So I just want to be clear, and these slides are here. The Corridors of Commerce program is direct appropriation, but it's a Trump had appropriation, and the language is right there highlighted, and that This has to be used on projects that were evaluated and scored under the Corridors of Commerce program in 2023. So highlighted there is the evaluation of those projects. So Highway 371 and 210 being the intersection that is eligible for funding under the Corridors of Commerce program. It is the only eligible location and project that is eligible under the Corridors of Commerce program as scored in 2023. So I just want to be really clear that both these funds are specific and they are on a timeline. We're targeting construction in 2028. So we spent a little over a year now, or over a year now, going through this process. We still have a lot to do before 2028. And then just wanted to leave this, before we move on, we have heard these concerns on wayfinding. These conversations, we understand them to be important to folks. You know, you look at a drawing from up in the air, look down on it, looks complicated. What we need to do when we're designing these, and we spend a lot of time doing it, is making sure that the signing and the striping, that we're giving a lot of positive guidance, channelization, signing, and striping are what's going to make this straightforward to navigate. That's what we follow when we drive. So we do have to give strong consideration to how much signing is overwhelming, things like that. And there's federal guidance on it. How much spacing do we need to make sure that this drives in a way that people expect it to, in a way that matches other arterials with similar context. So anyways, all that to say, we have been working very hard at investigating these types of business wayfinding opportunities that we've been requested to look at. We are trying to do that in preliminary design, which is a little bit hard because usually we do this in final design. But we have investigated several programs that do signing things like this, and it does look like the logo program is probably the best option. So that's a conversation that we can continue to have. I think there was an impression that this was a hard no on this kind of signing, and really it's just there's a lot that's wrapped up in it, right? There's a lot of spacing considerations that we have to look at. But what we're looking at now, it looks like in your right picture there, like this type of logo signing, if we left space for it in the design, would be somewhere in and around our MnDOT headquarters there. So that's when you would see what kind of businesses. And MnDOT isn't in full control of this program. This is a program that the businesses actually participate in. But where we can interact with it is in investigating the eligibility of something like this under a new context, and certainly trying to leave space in the signing such that it could be made possible. So I'll kind of leave you with that. We talked a lot, and I know there's other program here tonight.
Thank you. Bring it back to the council. Questions for either entity. Chamber clerk.
Yeah, I have a question. There was, Matt mentioned in your presentation.
Oh, it was barely plugged in. Hold on. All right, we're back now. Matt, you had mentioned trying to bring the speed down. You mentioned, Eric, you mentioned the speed differential is one of the big causes for accidents, and I can see that. And I've been trying to dig through all the historical data, multi 80, 90-page documents, but I'm doing my best here. One of the comments was, and I think we can all recognize this, that both College and Woida are both high accident intersections as well. Not only 210, but all three of those. This whole corridor is pretty rough. So something's going to need to be done at some point at those intersections as well. Has there been consideration, or is there any historical example or examples in other parts of the state where trying to bring this down to a more manageable speed using either narrower lanes, however, we can engineer the problem to create a slower traffic. I know the roundabouts on 210 are intending to slow traffic, which I think is great. is there an appetite or any sort of examples of trying to do the same thing for 371? For long-term for the entire corridor, to try to take care of, to gradually slow down the traffic through this entire corridor.
Derek may have thoughts on it from a design perspective too. I'd suggest that we are in the design doing that very thing. So, but what's unique about this is it isn't just a corridor. 210 and 371 and Excelsior all coming kind of together in that same spot. And so that intersection processing volumes like the 50 and predicted 60,000 vehicles a day, that kind of thing. No, I don't think there's an alternative that can process that much volume and slow everything down and still have it function. But what we have done and what's built into the design is, where are you concerned about those speeds? We're concerned about them where the conflicts exist, right? So what we've done under the design is removed those conflict points. Right now, if you have conflict points at the existing signalized intersection, where you can have speed differentials between some, and you know what's happening if you watch the signals on the corridor, signals south of us. People are getting impatient with them and they're running the red lights or they're. So when you do that, or when that exists, you have speed differentials of somewhere around 70 miles per hour difference. That's physics, right? We know that's something we don't want in our design. So what have we done is we've relocated those speeds, those conflict points, into channelized devices that are designed to slow speeds down, get you going in the same direction. So sometimes those, as you're going through these conflict points that we're concerned about, that's what the design does, is it reduces those speed differentials. So if you do get in an accident, it's no longer a 70 mile an hour differential in speed. You're probably going 5 miles an hour apart from each other, and that's kind of the brilliance of what roundabouts do. So we are doing that where it matters, but also allowing for traffic flow to improve, right, where those conflicts aren't necessary. Because there's no need to slow down everybody that's traveling that corridor in both directions, unless they're getting into those conflict points. And that's how we look at it as engineers. I don't know if you have anything different to say about it. Does that make sense? Sort of. I will say this about speeds. It's a common thing. Every time I go to an open house, I get the same question. Can you move that speed limit sign 500 feet that way? That'd make everything better. It doesn't really work that way. So MnDOT doesn't really have the statutory authority to just do that. What we are allowed to do is do a speed study. And so what you have to do is target the speed you want with the kind of design that you think you can achieve it with. So unless you are going to put a roundabout on there, like if you did want to do that on 371, you would almost have to put curvature in the road like a roundabout very predictably in a lot of locations to get people to actually physically have to slow down, because they don't just do it. And you won't get anything by just reducing the shoulder. You're not going to achieve those kinds of speed reductions just by that. So you are going to have to use infrastructure to slow people down, and then the way the speeds come down is you physically make them do it, and then you do a speed study, and then the speed signs move. That's the order in which things happen.
I'm curious just to ask one of the key questions that came from the chamber. What if municipal consent is not given? What happens?
Yep, I can hit that one too, and I can frame it up like this. This is a significant opportunity that we have. A lot of communities are dying for an opportunity like this. I was just looking at a project today where their communities are trying to prepare enough information on their transportation projects so that they can demonstrate. This is like a grant that we all applied for, right? The City of Baxter, the Cronin County, MnDOT. This was a cooperative grant opportunity almost, if you want to think of it that way. A lot of projects that aren't funded don't have the same tools in the toolbox. So that matters, right? So we do have this opportunity before us. It's allowed us to be collaborative over the last year. We have been able to have some conversations that you don't get to have when your only tool in the toolbox is being able to build and overlay a road. That's generally what our program is focused on at MnDOT, is, you know, preserving pavements and addressing failing bridge condition. Those are our two primary buckets. So when we don't have special funds in place like this, like we talked about, the corridors of commerce funding is the opportunity that's allowing us to have all these great discussions and to dream up all these interesting alternatives. If it were to go away, we would be like, there'd be less tools in our toolbox. That's all I can really say about it. We'd have to look at now if the severity, we start having fatalities at these intersections and these access points and things like that, you're gonna see MnDOT have it. There probably is no actual no-build scenario. As an agency, we have to be responsible for keeping the road safe and doing what we can. So, but then we're gonna have less opportunities. It's gonna look more like just access restrictions at that point.
So you're saying pretty much that the funding will not be there if we don't approve or give consent?
This funding would go away, so.
And there will be no chance of getting it back or reapplying down the road?
No, so this funding here would go to either to the next eligible so the language was that it goes to a selected project under 2023, so that could happen in a couple different things, and I'm just theorizing, but it would either go to the next project on the list, which would be on a pretty tight time frame, or it would go to overages on the other projects. So either way, it wouldn't go to anything here.
And then we'd have to reapply in future years for corridors of commerce to do it again.
Yeah, that's correct, but at this point, then you'd be looking at already having gone through the process, and it would look like you know, again, when you write for a grant, you think, you know, we want to have things that look like they could happen, that make the project look good and constructible in relation to other projects. So if this one had already gone through the process, and that would be a higher mountain to climb, I guess, at the same time.
So along that note, do you have a picture of the option 2 design that we actually used to get this grant?
The folded diamond, I would assume, or the diverging diamonds. We did.
So while we're looking for that, a couple things that I'd like to, I've got a list of what I kind of think are our city priorities, or maybe my priorities. But one of the things that I've noticed, and I drive this a lot, is we have signal warning lights at Woyda. Tells us ahead of time to stop. We have a signal light at 48. Highway 48, we have a signal light at College Drive, front and stop. We don't have anything at Woyda or Excelsior, or not at Woyda, but at 210 or Excelsior to tell us that light's going to change. Just an observation. You say a lot of these accidents are rear enders, and you know, I don't know. I ride a motorcycle, so I see people talking on their phone, looking at their phone, watching movies on the screen, on their dash, all kinds of distractions, not even counting the distractions you have with kids or eating or any of that. And a lot of these crashes that I see there happen when we've got those right turns and they're trying to either get in or they jumped in and then somebody didn't realize someone got in front of them and they rear-ended them. Okay? Not super high speed deals. And our speed limit, there's 50 or 45. 50 starting down by Walmart before we get to College Drive. So my initial comment, and I use this a lot in architecture, you can't design the church for Easter morning. So the picture you put up at the beginning of your presentation was 371 coming up on either a typical Friday night or maybe BIR weekend. We don't see that all through the winter, and we don't see that Mondays through Thursdays. But we are asking a lot of the city and these businesses and all these residents to make these huge changes so we can take however many thousand people that are stuck down to 48 and get them through our city quicker. He came to us 25 years ago about and created this corridor designation going up through 71. And I said at the time, it's going to get us in the future. And this is the future. This is now the premise of where the rules come into play as to how far apart you can have these intersections. Whereas 210 doesn't have the same designation, correct? Just yes or no, that's fine.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that we looked at with this project. There's a lot of the ways, and you'll see it as you look through the alternatives that were screened. Orientation of the railroad made a lot of the designs that we would otherwise really like difficult. But one of the things that we looked at is a lot of, I'll just say that a lot of the alternatives, the way they laid it in, free flow would more easily free flow 210 than it would 371.
Sure.
But you're correct in that it's pointing at a town with a lot of access. So it is a different kind of corridor. So a lot of what we were trying to do was orient it the other way, but still provide good access.
Sure, it's a difficult project, without a doubt, it's a difficult project. But I think there's other projects in the state, probably in the ring suburban communities around the cities that have these same kinds of problems, maybe not to this detail. But what I'm getting at with this slide is this is what we went to get a grant for, correct? And
Yes.
the signal is still there at Excelsior Road at grade. We are connecting Fairview around to our existing roundabout. So we create our access there. We have access on and off of 371, both at 210 and at Excelsior. And we created the biggest issue in your report and on the red dots, because I looked it up, is the issue right there at 371 and 210. That's the intersection that we're fixing, and that's what the grant says to fix. And the grant says to do a grade change intersection over there, and that's what you've got there. So we went through all kinds of design to get to this point. And so if we can remember this one and flip to the latest one that we're looking at now, can you do that on the slide? Because I think there's some things we can do with the current design to get back to what we won the grant with and still get a reasonable solution between what MnDOT wants and what we as a city want. So if you look at that one, I like the two roundabouts on 210. I think that works great. My question is, can they be closer together? And bringing them closer together, can you leave the 3/4 access at Golf Course Drive? take out the two middle roundabouts and go back to the design that we wanted, where you take the two lanes off of 371 and come down to 210. Because that gives us on and off on 210, on and off where it's easy. The thing I see, right, it's one easy movement. If we go back a slide, I think the one thing that really caught my eye when you put up that sign that said half mile down the road, Excelsior 210. Well, wait a minute, I'm not going on 210, I'm going on Excelsior, or I'm going on Excelsior, not 210. But yet, it's the same intersection. So you've taken and you said, okay, I'm gonna make that right turn. But now you've given me a quarter of that roundabout to make my next decision on which way I'm going, north or south, to get there. So, let me go through mine. So, if we could tighten this up and pull it in, because in this case, we have about 30 years of comp plan where we have done our own traffic study, our own traffic planning, and our own build of that traffic plan. And this really messes up our traffic plan. Fairview Road is supposed to come around and connect to our existing roundabout on Excelsior so that it creates that frontage road and tracks it all the way through. It's unfortunate we can't get it on the other side without getting all the confusion. And if we can pull it together a little bit, I think we could get there. If we could potentially take the two T's on either side and pull them a little bit south. I know you've got some design criteria, but again, you're talking about speeds. And if this road is gonna get, eventually it'll get signed at 65 miles an hour across here. But when I make that right turn, it's 25. And we've all been down in the cities at 494, 35W, and we've gone from 65, 70 miles an hour, screeching into 25, where you've got now a light that's trying to meter traffic, and people are stopped. So there's a big conflict. So we've just taken our conflicts and moved them in different places. So we've taken a big round circle out, we're kind of spreading it out into some other spots. So again, if we can make Excelsior grade like we had on our original concept, we get rid of 3 roundabouts. And well, yeah, we get rid of 3 roundabouts. They aren't cheap. And maybe there's money that we can put into some other things. Connect Fairview, like I said, existing, open up golf course to 3/4, open up Design Drive to 3/4, because those are places where we're getting people out to our local businesses. Now, I take exception when you tell me you're designing this so that our locals are not going to be on it. And yes, if you make it complicated enough, our locals are not going to be on it. But the problem with that is there's a good chunk of us that live down off of College, south of there. We're building a lot of apartments down there. Those people are going to get on 371 to go north and do any business up in the business center. So if this were truly going to handle that, then you'd run those frontage roads all the way south, but now we've got the railroad again. So another complicated issue. So our locals are going to get on this road without a doubt. Now, there are some baggage roads we have. There's some ways that we can get around some of this congestion. But we didn't That didn't happen by accident. That happened through a plan that we put together because we've been dealing with traffic on 371 for 30 years. We've been dealing with the race traffic, with weekend traffic, and we know there's another way to get there. It's not the most convenient way, but if we have to take it, we take it. And I mean, I think that there's ways that we can pull this together and get back to that design that we actually won the grant with.
I can touch on this alternative. This was one of the 19 that was evaluated that we talked about that moved forward. The concern with this was when this was drawn up for that, it was conceptual. It did not address the vertical grades. And so when you look at this button hook configuration, this intersection here, and how short these legs are, they can't get down to 210 that quick. And so this alternative actually was the initial thought idea for the button hook. And we took that and expanded on it. So when we did the full three-dimensional design on it, that pushed these button hooks, these ramps this far north. So you need at least this distance to get down to 210 between the grade coming down on 371 and to 210. So that's what changed this design after it got into further evaluation. That's one of the changes.
Can't we do that though? If you took the button hook and moved it north,
We could
create the distance and bring the two roundabouts on the 210. Can we accomplish that and still get an at grade at Excelsior?
this.
And my other question is, where in the bridge does the grade change and start down? Because theoretically, you could have the highest point of 371, the north side of the railroad right of way. And you could start down from there. And you can pull 210 south. I mean, we can relocate some pieces. We have lots of retaining walls on what we're looking at right now. And you could certainly put a retaining wall between the railroad and 210 in order to have a grade change. You already have a grade change there. You're just taking it with space instead of a retaining wall.
Yeah, so when we looked at this, what would happen if we moved this farther north? It'd be even closer to Excelsior, and we actually looked at an alternative, and it would have been the second open house. We presented those level 1 alternatives that had a single point here, and we still had a signal at Excelsior. And by the time our intersections need to be flat, we were looking at an 8 to 10 foot grade raise of Excelsior in order to maintain an at-grade intersection. You can't get down from the 30 feet of the railroad to Excelsior that quickly. And so that then resulted in a significant grade raise on Excelsior. There's geometrically, and within our standards on vertical grades, especially when you're approaching a signal, we don't want you coming down at a 7% grade and having to stop at a signal. So we limit that to 3%. You just physically can't get down that quick. You have to bring Excelsior up 8 to 10 feet to do it. Which means, that perpetuates back, and then the access on either side of Excelsior would have to be taken out because we'd have retaining walls to help us get down and land.
And this is something that we knew we kind of had to hit head on when we first got into the data gathering part of this project. It became very evident that the grades were going to be a challenge here with the railroad. And when you have the ability to then take it a step further and do the traffic modeling, see where the queuing actually is, you have to start asking yourself those questions of like, well, how steep of grade is too steep for people stopping in that queue. And once you know where those queues are, you have to consider, all right, well, was that figured in then? Well, we had a little more data under this study to say, all right, well, these queues actually back up to such and such a point. What do we want the grades to be there? The bottom line is what it comes down to is you're steepening up that profile 371 so great that we used a case study when we went into open house one, and we knew that we'd get that question, you know, can't we just steepen it up? You know, why can't we do a 5% grade? And we looked at a couple intersections down on the 15 corridor, down 38th Street on 15. Those are steepened that way, and they're not performing well. So to perpetuate something like that here, that's kind of what you're getting out of that kind of design. So it is something that we've looked at closely, and that we have kind of exchanged with folks at these open houses on, because it's a legitimate question. It's like, well, wouldn't that be the best if we could just, you know, keep that the way it is, and keep the interchange tight to 210 and 371. And we did move one alternative forward where we were able to achieve a 3% grade on the highway. You'll remember it as the single point interchange where there was an Excelsior, where there was a signal remaining at Excelsior, and then we evaluated it without. The problem with the single point and the signal at Excelsior together is the traffic modeling. It didn't perform any better than the no build, so it doesn't solve any kind of flow issues.
Okay, well, as long as we're gonna still have, and I'm making a huge assumption here, for the next 20 years, we're gonna have lights at 48 and Cypress, or 48 College, Wood Road, and 77, correct? I mean, those are the lights. We have backups of those lights today. Just because you've eliminated 2 lights and put an overpass, all you're doing is getting people up to 40, up to Boyd Road and 77 quicker. Just make that one fail.
Yeah, and I know we threw a lot of tables up there, but that is a common question that we're getting. Basically what the tables say is that there's enough spacing there where there isn't that much interaction between the build of this project and what's going on at Woya. Now, whether or not you like what's going on at Woya is a different conversation. That's being addressed in the planning study, and we're not funded to look at Woya right now. But what we did feel was responsible for us to do is to answer that question. What does this project do to Woya? It keeps it at the same level of service that it's at currently. We like those tables better than you all probably get. They're the yellow and red tables that fill the screen, but that's basically what that's saying.
I don't know if Matt got an answer to his question about are any changes possible? And then how does that, how do any potential changes tie into the legislatively dictating time frames? There's a certain sequence of events that have to happen before was everything. Is that correct?
Well, yes, we are on a schedule, like I said, so the luxury of an extra year of thinking about it and talking about it, that's not reality. Because construction would be in 2028, this project would need to bid in basically November of 2027. So in order to work through all the different things that have to happen, right? Foundations, investigations, structure designs, we've got to select the structure teams, 2 bridges, retaining walls, all of that takes time. Working through adjacent property impacts, things like that. We don't want to rush those conversations, those need time. So there is a schedule to the project. In terms of design changes, what I saw from the initial presentation that we saw today, you know, half of those things were actually answered. And so I don't know if there's a little bit of miscommunication here too, but our slide deck showed layouts that did make modifications at Fairview, did make modifications to Gulf Coast Road did make modifications at the Francis Payne location to access into the bridge clearance. We have been investigating wayfinding and what opportunities exist with wayfinding. But there will be a point at which you're not achieving needs of the project. If you want to keep it exactly the same it is, you'll accept the same kind of issues that you're experiencing, right? So there is going to be a point at which it doesn't add value to the design. And we have been reviewing and re-reviewing this at the city's request with some of these memos that we've been exchanging. We'll continue to do that, to continue to have that conversation. And so there's opportunities here within the design to continue having those conversations with wayfinding, with designing, constructability. We haven't talked about constructability at all. There is an opportunity. We've been seeking feedback to get folks to make some aesthetic decisions with us. We don't want to make those decisions. We feel those decisions belong to the city of Baxter and whoever it appoints to do those types of things. So those are opportunities to still influence this design and what those walls look like and things like that. So.
Okay, we've got a council meeting here in 3 minutes. Madam, I give you the last word since you called for this meeting.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and I know our businesses that will have another opportunity here in a couple weeks to weigh in. Like I said, when I first came in, I value their willingness to come and engage with the process to answer questions. But I think what you may be experiencing is what we've been experiencing for 4 months. You make suggestions and then there's every possible explanation why they won't work. And it's just hard to believe that we've thought of everything in this design. It can only do this. This is the only option that exists that would fit. That's hard to accept, that there isn't another solution, that there isn't another tweak. And when we asked the question, and you asked it back, well, what would happen if we vote no? The answer is not, well, we'd go back to the drawing board and make it better. The answer is, well, we're going to take our money and give it to somebody else. That's not acceptable. So you have a lot to think about. You have a lot to wrestle with. I was hoping that we'd have a breakthrough tonight. I don't see one. But we'll keep on trying, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and I'll have a lot of other people who'd like to weigh in at that point. So, thank you.
Great, thank you. Look for a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
I.
Take a quick break. Right back. Thank you, and welcome to our council meeting. Any presentations, Brad?
We have none, Your Honor.
Any additions or changes?
We have one addition, item 36 on consent, that is to review the Source Rural Healthcare Insurance Contract for 2026 with Blue Cross Blue Shield and authorize the contract execution.
Okay. Any written public comments? That must be barely not. Anybody here to address us on things that are not on the agenda during our public comment? Okay, seeing nothing, we'll move right along. The following items are considered non-controversial by staff and are recommended to be read and passed in one motion. Any council person, staff, citizen, or meeting attendee can request one or more items be pulled from the consent agenda, and the item will be pulled and addressed immediately after the passage of the consent agenda. Otherwise, the following items will be passed in one motion. Number 1, approve the city council minutes from October 7th, 2025. Number 2, accept utilities commission minutes from October 8th, 2025. Number 3, accept planning and zoning commission minutes from October 14th, 2025. Number 4, approve the payment of bills and finance report. Number Number 5, approve temporary liquor license for Jack Vine Brewery to conduct temporary liquor sales on November 15th, 2025 at Northland Arboretum.
Please pull that item.
Number 6, approve the Fiberwood Development Agreement. Number 7, approve the SEH contract in the not-to-exceed amount of $79,600 for professional services during the construction phase for the Fiberwood development. Number 8, approve the BNSF invoice 90289650 in the amount of $5,075.95 for the 2022 Trunk Highway 210 and Eaglewood Drive Improvements Project, the city improvement number 4121. Number 9, approve the Aztec Corporation pay estimate number 2 in the amount of $37,892.50 for the 2025 micro-servicing project. Number 10, approve the R.L. Larson Excavating Inc. change order number 9 in the increased amount of $40,323.68 for the 2024 South Forest View Improvements Project, municipal project number 4138. Number 11, approve R.L. Larson Excavating Inc. partial pay estimate number 13 in the amount of $51,937.75 for the 2024 South Forest View Area Improvements Project, municipal project number 4138. Number 12, approve the Trout Company's change order number 2 for a contract time extension for contract A related to the 2025 water supply improvements, wells 4, 5, and 6 rather, project, municipal project number 6011-45040. Number 13, approve Trout Company's partial pay estimate number 3 in the amount of $204,511.25 for work completed on contract A related to the 2025 water supply improvements, wells 5 and 6, municipal project number 6011-4504. Number 14, approve Pratt's Affordable Excavating Inc. change order number 2 in the increased amount of $41,534.59 for contract B related to the 2025 water supply improvements, wells 5 and 6 project, municipal project number 6011-45040. Number 15, approve Pratt's Affordable Excavating Inc. partial pay estimate number 5 in the amount of $22,623.32 for work completed on contract B related to the 2025 water supply improvements, wells 5 and 6, municipal project number 6011-45040. Number 16, approve the SEH fee amendment number 2 in the not-to-exceed amount of $44,885 for the revised total not to exceed the amount of $455,939.80 for additional professional services during the construction phase related to the 2025 water supply improvements, wells 5 and 6, municipal project number 6011-45040. Number 17, approve a project budget increase in the amount of $75,290 from $2,348,500 to a revised budget amount of $2,423,790 for the 2025 water supply improvements, wells 5 and 6, municipal project number 6011-45040. Number 18, approve the SEH contract in a not-to-exceed amount of $14,000 for the Baxter VA Clinic Traffic Impact Study. Number 19, approve Pratt's Affordable Excavating Inc. change order number 3 in the increased amount of $2,226 for the County State Aid Highway 77 Utility Improvements Project, municipal project number 4118. Number 20, approve Pratt's Affordable Excavating Inc. pay estimate number 5 in the amount of $35,848.74 for the 2024 County State Aid Highway 77 Utility Improvements Project, municipal project 4118. 21, approve the Knife River Corporation North Central change order number 9 in the decreased amount of $40,000 for the 2024 mill and overlay and full depth reclamation improvements project, municipal project number 4424. Number 22, approve the Knife River Corporation North Central final pay estimate number 11 in the amount of $103,496.80 for the 2024 mill and overlay and full depth reclamation improvements project, municipal project number 4424. Number 23, approve the Anderson Brothers construction change order number 2 to modify the substantial date for the 2025 commercial full depth reclamation improvements project. Municipal project number 4425. Number 24, approve the Anderson Brothers construction partial pay estimate number 1 in the amount of $158,684.85 for the 2025 commercial full depth reclamation improvements project, municipal project number 4425. Number 25, approve the J.R. Furchy Inc. partial pay estimate number 2, the amount of $1,487,849.72 for the 2025 design road and trunk highway 371 stormwater improvements project, municipal project number 4135. Number 26, approve the Tom's Backhoe Service Inc. partial pay estimate number 2, the amount of $10,805.06 for the lift station number 7 project. Number 27, approve the WITSA proposal for smoke testing, lift station number 11, service area for the not to exceed amount of $25,350. 28, approve the 2025-26 annual winter trail and pedestrian ramp closure. Number 29, approve the Liberty Village development agreement. Number 30, approve the Liberty Village stormwater facilities maintenance agreement. Number 31, approve the SEH contract in the not to exceed amount of $59,500 for professional services during the construction phase for the Liberty Village development. Number 32, adopt resolution 2025-087, approving variances to the 40-foot setback for the existing detached garage and to allow the garage forward of the principal structure for the property located at 6768 Excelsior Road. 33, adopt resolution 2025-085 and 2025-086 and ordinance 2025-011, approving the preliminary and final plan of Liberty Village zoning map amendment from R1 low density residential and R2 medium density residential to PUD land unit development and PUD general and final plan for vacant property located in the northwest corner of Excelsior Road and Grand Oaks Drive. Number 34, adopt resolution 2025-084, approving the preliminary and final plan of Fiberwood First Edition. Number 35, adopt resolutions 2025-083, approving a variance to side yard setback for property located at 7650 Getters Road. Number 36, renew the Sourcewell Health Insurance contract for 2026 with Blue Cross Blue Shield and authorize contract execution.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion Cross, second by Lucio, all in favor?
Aye.
And we've got, what number did we pull?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain from voting because I am the applicant.
Motion to approve number 5.
Motion by Cross,
Second.
second by Lucio, all in favor?
Aye.
Both same sign, motion carries. Okay, that brings us down to number 37, vacating easements on the line.
Your Honor, Council is a request for vacating easements related to the Liberty Village development plan that the council had on the consent agenda. There are 2 existing plats on the subject property that have easements that we want to vacate to kind of make this lake clean for the easements to get reestablished with the proposed development plan plats. So asking to open a public hearing and consider approval of resolution 2025-088.
Public hearing at 7:14. Anybody here to address this issue? Want to comment on it? Seeing none, we'll close at 7:14:30.
Motion to adopt resolution 2025-088.
Second.
Motion by Cross, second by Lucio. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion carries. Very good. I just want to, I know Mark was involved in that plat, and so was I with the plat, so, but it kind of fits the bill of what we've been talking about with, number one, with that, this land has been vacant for sale for a long time, and then the density scenario, so kind of two birds with one stone there. It's a great project, I think, you know, and kind of fulfills those 2 things that we've just been talking about, so. All right, council comments.
I have none.
Mr. Tammett's not here. Patrick?
Yeah, I just want to throw out I worked at their Hunt Trail this past weekend. I got to volunteer at that. It's a great boost of revenue for them. And they had a record attendance, so they beat the previous year by about 4%. So there was really good weather, so that helped, but it was very well attended. And shout out to all the volunteers that make that happen. This was my first year ever attending. Our kids just weren't that excited about scary things, so we never were able to make it. But there's just a ton of volunteers that make that happen. It's just amazing.
It's a very big deal.
Mark? I don't know, just a comment about the meeting. I made a conscious effort not to throw my ideas out there early because I wanted to see what was going to be presented as well as how things were received, and I guess I kind of got my answer there. By waiting, I could see the reaction to each of the ideas that got presented forward, and I do look forward to being on the aesthetics commission or committee for this project when we move forward. However, my only comment to that is the way I read everything to this day. We're getting basic concrete, and anything we want above and beyond concrete or any landscaping we want to put in there at the city dime. Is that the way I'm reading it? So
to an extent, what has been explained to city staff is no different than going to home improvement store or anything of that nature. There's a catalog in which you can choose from in the context of aesthetics that would fit under the bill of being that general design and be going outside that. So like going with an ornate fence instead of a chain link or something of that nature, that would be a city expenditure. The only thing that has been identified very clearly as not being an eligible expenditure to the project is with the preferred design is any landscape improvements with the roundabout.
you're talking about the center of the roundabout, or is that what they're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Well, we can do a lot in landscaping to hide some of the issues that we will get out of this, but if we have to pay for it, it's too bad there isn't some type of mechanism, so if we were to come up with an idea to save some money, we could use it towards the beautification of this project. Anyway, that's my comment for the night.
And we did get some comments about that, at least one, maybe two, said, you got a $58 million, whatever it is, bridge, don't skimp on the look, it's what people are gonna, this is if it all happens. It's the look that people are gonna see as they're coming into town, and so whoever that was didn't wanna see cement blocks, they thought there should be something along, but, and that's, I probably agree with them, but at what cost, too, so I don't know. So there's people thinking that way, based on the comments we got, so. Brad, how do we, I'm sorry, we're done?
I'm done, yes.
How do we wrap up what happened tonight? Do we have any more opportunities for conversations, or do we wait till after the big one, or?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Minnesota statute lays out the due process for municipal consent. Council has the ability to continue the dialogue with MnDOT all the way up to 90 days after the public hearing, where there's an expectation for a final decision. You can make that final decision regardless if it's for or against, anytime after November 3rd. But I believe in previous communications I indicated that with the public hearing being on November 3rd, that February 1st would be that drop dead date. If an answer is not provided, it would be considered approval of municipal consent and then not move forward. I'll just piggyback on what I had initially stated. at the beginning of the work session. This is just, you're now just being in the beginning stages of municipal consent. You've been a participant in the process, just as the public, but now you are in a position of having to make a decision. And I personally don't take that lightly, and I would encourage you, if there's anything that you believe is necessary to have an answer to, regardless of what the answer is, please let us know so that we can vet those out. There's a few things that were shared tonight that I'm going to follow up with that and make sure that we have answers to. And we'll continue to do so until council is comfortable with where they're at to make a decision. My intentions are to ask the question at city administrator report each meeting from November 4th on. Is there any additional information that you need? Are you comfortable with scheduling consideration of municipal consent at the next meeting? If the answer is no, we'll just move it to the next one. In that context, to ask the question so that we can transparently give a date to when the council is going to make that decision.
Okay. Anything else on your report?
Not from the city administrator's report. We do have city attorney Beardness is requesting a closed session per Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3 for attorney-client privilege for discussion of potential litigation pertaining to the Whiskey Creek Stormwater Project. Looking for a motion to.
Just before you do that, while the meeting was going on, we got an invitation to the grand opening at Quick Trip, so take a gander at that, see if that time frame works for you, so go ahead.
So looking for a motion to go